Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Andrew Figtree. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Please sit if you wish to do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Harold Alexander Munro Gray. Harold Gray was born on the 17th of August 1895 to Alex and Gertie Gray. Although born in Murtoa, a small wheat district town some 300 kilometres northwest of Melbourne, he grew up in Melbourne, where his father was on the teaching staff of the Church of England Grammar School. Young Gray was an active member of the local cadets and went on to study at the Royal Military College at Duntroon, where he was among the first to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force in August 1914, shortly after the outbreak of war. Gray was only 19 when he enlisted and was considered too young to become an officer, but he proved to be an able and steady soldier and rose quickly to the rank of corporal within the 5th Battalion. He was with the battalion as it landed on Gallipoli as part of the second wave and continued to gain positive attention through his service on the peninsula. In May 1915, he was commissioned as second lieutenant. Although he was evacuated with gastroenteritis in July and spent some time in hospital, Gray served for a total of 7 months in the Gallipoli Peninsula. Shortly after the evacuation, in December 1915, he was hospitalised again with paratyphoid, but returned to his battalion in time to arrive in France with the rest of them in March 1916. The first major action of the 5th Battalion came during the Battle of Pozières in July 1916. While the battalion did not participate in the initial operation to capture the southern part of the French village, it was soon called into the front lines to push the advantage and capture the remaining portion of the village. On the 25th of July 1916, Lieutenant Gray, serving as intelligence officer for the 5th Battalion, was sent into no man's land by the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Frank Lemastre, to obtain important information. While Gray was forward of the front line trench, the Germans counterattacked. Caught by machine gun fire, Gray was killed instantly. Lemastre wrote to Alex Gray after his son's death, writing, "He was just due for his promotion to captain and had been specially mentioned for his good work as battalion intelligence officer several times. He will prove a very difficult man to replace, and his loss is deeply regretted throughout the battalion. When I reported his death to our general, he but voiced my opinion when he said, 'What? Gray gone? He is a loss indeed.'" Harold Gray's body was never recovered from the battlefield. He was 20 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Harold Alexander Munro Gray, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, had thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and good evening.